welcome to all joining us once again for a new Dairy Cafe. Thank you so much for joining us for the second week in a row. Um, are we compensating for the fact that you were off on paternity leave for a bit, Jasper? What's happening?
No, I believe that in the coming weeks is holiday season. Some of us are off, and we figured, you know what, we swapped a little bit, or we moved the agenda invites around a bit. We decided let's just do two in a row and make sure that everyone has enough info to go away on holiday, I'd say.
Awesome. And also because we left the last Dairy Cafe with a little bit of an appetite still, an appetite for information. Not just an appetite for cheese, but an appetite for cheese information. I think it's one of the groups that have been moving a lot over the past weeks, months, that we didn't totally get coverage on. And there's a little, I think the two W's that we mentioned in preparation for this, that is both whey and weather, and what the impact of whey and weather is on these markets. Yep. And that's a very important one, I think, to note, both why they have such an impact on these, yep, but also what the actual impact is and what we've been seeing, and why the impact of weather, for instance, on cheese is different than it is on milk powders.
Yep. Yeah, I think indeed we've discussed quite a large number of products last time, or in this case last week. But cheese indeed was one of them that we kind of skimmed through quickly. But there's much more to it. It's much more global. There's quite a change, and I think this is one of the markets where I left to go on paternity leave, and then I came back and I figured, wait, this isn't really what I anticipated would happen. So I had to dive in and do some research. But I'm happy to explain what I found.
Okay, and do we start off maybe first with the new home feed?
Yeah. So usually this is how we start the Dairy Cafe and how I still start most of my analyses, but we've had a new edition, or we have a new edition. It's the return of the home feed, which essentially is, well, a proper way to actually get back up to speed with everything that's been taking place in the last week, in this case, or in the last few months, if you want to know something about a certain type of market. So what we've done is we've put together some of the most crucial pieces of information for several markets that you might be tracking. In this case, Gouda, we have a quick update on all of the different prices that I track. Generally in the dashboard, I have hundreds of more, but for this case, we've decided to trim it down to a few that are much more common. And that's combined with some other forward view, market analyses and news, all in like one central place that really help you to start your investigation. And this is also where I believe it's nice to kind of go through the flow that we've started to create to really dive deep in every single market. Starting in this case with Gouda. Yes, I saw that prices indeed moved up slightly compared to the week before, but what really happened? And if you click on it, you actually have a bit of a market update. It explains you how prices have been bouncing back up. Some of the bulls that have been around, which in this case has been because some sellers have been sold out quite quickly, and at the same time buyers came back, and at the same time there's a few bears with cheese stocks that are generally high. So all of this is kind of search for you. You don't need to dive into all of the different dashboards to find every nitty-gritty detail, which I still like to do, but I have a quick summary that really helps me determine what's going on.
So what this does is when you, from the home feed, click into this, it's compiled all of these different elements. So that is the market reports that Jasper writes, the arguments in there, the forecasting that we do. It can scour for arguments on the dashboard to the different data. So you can change the forecast as well, but also if you scroll down or go to the full outlook there, you're going to get a quarter by quarter view here first. But if you go to the full outlook in the bottom right, what you're going to get is, feel free to click.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I need to change my screen recording. Give me a sec.
Oh, you're only sharing this one tab. So in a new tab, it will open, and then it will go to the full outlook and more of a granular view on a quarterly basis, where you're going to see exactly what's happening and a per quarter bulls and bears, and everything tracks back to the source where it came from. So really just to help you get started on, hey, what should I be looking at? You're still the human in the loop. You can see all of the sources. You can click through to the sources, and just trying to make it easier to connect all the dots between fundamentals, between price level changes, forecasting, the expert reports that Jasper writes, amongst others, the news feed and bring it all together into like one easily digestible feed. And we hope that the new flow is, okay, start with the home feed, see what's changed, see the new price changes, go into here. And if you need more information or you want to deep dive, of course, what you have come to expect from the Dairy Cafe, you go on to the dashboard into the raw data.
Yep. Well, in this case, that's exactly what we'll do from here. But I believe this is a great start for several markets. At least I used it when I came back to have a quick view of what's been taking place in the last few weeks before I decided to dive back in.
Awesome.
And that's what we're going to do. So for today, I prepared a lot about cheese. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't answer any other questions about other markets, because there are still things that took place in other markets. For example, the one that we start off with, skim milk powder actually converging. So Oceanian, European, and US price levels have actually converged. It took a while, more than 6 months, and it rarely happens that they're so close to each other. But it happened this week, which really starts the global competition again, which is exactly what also kind of plays a large role in several cheese markets. And that's where we're actually going to go next. So to kind of take you back to the moment where I left for paternity leave, which was, I think these are a lot of prices to look at the same time. So I'm just going to cycle through, let's say, Cheddar in this case. I went away on paternity leave roughly, just before these prices were published. So the halfway June, prices were roughly low, or generally low. We saw a market in which sellers were looking to sell some of the remaining volumes that they still have for the upcoming quarters just before the end of H1. So right before the holiday season came along, we saw a few producers and also some traders out there in the market trying to sell volumes, not at really low prices, but they were happy to accept slightly less just to make sure that they kept the volumes moving. And I believe that it took a week or two before we really started to see that change significantly. So I'll zoom in a little bit to make that more obvious. And I'll, in this case, use the mozzarella markets in both cases. The heat wave was one of the major things that started to push up markets, but at the same time, there was also a large element of global competition. So speaking of the W as in weather that we discussed in the intro already, weather really played a role and turned this market from a slightly bearish market with not an endless bottom, but a bottom that kept on finding itself slightly lower, to a market that turned where sellers were suddenly quite hesitant to sell forward. There was no need. They were somewhat concerned about their milk output throughout the months of July or August, and they didn't really want to commit to selling volumes that they weren't 100% sure of that they would be able to produce. And in that case, it's a common strategy, especially on the producing side, to cut back on some sales and leave those open for spot, so that whatever happens, you still have some volumes to sell and you don't sell too cheap, because that's the one thing that they were always concerned of. And that's generally when the weather is really when that market started to turn. And in this case, European weather was actually what triggered mozzarella markets, but also Gouda markets and also Cheddar markets to a certain extent to turn and move up in price. And that's when that global competition element came on top, because currently we see a market that's competing between regions. Europe and US, also Oceania, are all trying to export cheese, and you can only sell to one person once, and if Europe has found it, then US has to find a different exporter, and that role is growing, so that's definitely starting to play a much bigger role.
Yeah, I think maybe starting off with the weather aspect, and of course we discussed it last week, and then we talked about the dip that we saw in mainly the weekly milk production figures. That a heat wave can really cause yield numbers to decrease quite drastically for that period.
Yep.
And that we saw that, but then we had a question in there. Okay, but Whey, do you now expect this weather to have like a long-lasting impact on the Whey availability? And I think our answer was no, we don't think so. It's a temporary effect, and this is it's a long cycle. So this will, like a week's worth of weather, like one heat wave, will not be the reason for that to change. Does it work differently with cheese? the impact of lower milk availability or of higher milk availability for the same sense than it does on, for instance, skim milk powder or on whey products?
I would say it's mostly similar. So like a large part is a similar story. The underlying fundamentals on how much milk is produced, it's down temporarily, but in the long run, it doesn't necessarily change too much. But I believe this year there is a slight change in how that works with cheese, because I feel like this is where valorization starts to play a bit more of a role, which is something we wanted to discuss either way. We know that currently the milk surplus that we see and the strong, and this is where I'll actually look up the valorization, which is how much you'll earn by producing a certain type of commodity. In this case, I'll use Gouda versus SMP and butter as an example. We have an excess of milk. And if you want to make sure you achieve the most out of that, it's much more interesting ever since, well, what is it, January this year, maybe slightly earlier. Before that was roughly on par, or sometimes Gouda was also better. But now we've also had a continuous period in which it earns quite well to produce cheese, not just cheddar, not just Gouda, but also cheddar and mozzarella earns really, really well. So with the excess milk that there is, you will see that there's a primary incentive to produce cheese first. And if you can't do cheese, you'll probably go to some of the other markets like SMP and butter that you can put on stock. That means that in a situation where, and I am going to get to and then answer to your question, in a situation where the temperatures rise and the milk output starts to shrink, like that surplus of milk that's originally being put into cheese is also one of the first that will actually pull back, because there's a lot of long-lasting contracts, agreements, and that bit of surplus cheese production is actually where you might see some of the hits the fastest. That's exactly what I think I'm scrolling up to mozzarella in this case. We saw mozzarella in the mozzarella market throughout Europe. We saw that demand picked up because mozzarella consumption is generally quite high in summer. But at the same time, it's one of those fresher cheeses that's really made with the bit of surplus of milk that takes place in spring and Q2. And once that vanishes, even for a few weeks, it really makes that market turn really, really quickly. That has implications on way down the road, but I think it has a bit more of an effect on cheese than it does on things like whey powder.
Clear. Thank you so much. And then the second W, whey.
I feel like we've highlighted it slightly, but one of the things that are quite crucial in recent times is the inclusion of whey, or at least the additional valorization that you achieve by being able to sell whey as a byproduct. In the valorization chart, which is actually basically the historical version with the historical values of the valorization calculation that you can find in our calculations tab. For the ones who haven't seen this before, this is where we store the price of all the commodities every week, and we define different options of products that you can make with 10,000 liters of milk. In this case, if we compare, for example, here, option 1 is SMP butter, the one that we were looking at before, and option 4 is Gouda, the one we were looking at before. In option 1, we have skim milk powder, a lot of butter, and a bit of buttermilk powder that have each certain earnings. And then option 4 consists of, we make Gouda with a tiny bit of butter with the excess cream, a bit of buttermilk powder, and a lot of sweet whey powder. And we don't even include WPC here, which would have been an even more beneficial outcome. But the effect of whey is growing so much that the valorization of a cheese, can be Gouda, can be Cheddar, can be Edam, can be Maasdam, can be any type of cheese you would like to produce, that whey that comes with it, it starts to earn so much that the valorization just almost isn't matching up anymore with things like SMP butter or WMP. There's such a big discrepancy that it really looks like anyone who is able to switch to cheese and whey, and that doesn't even need to be WPC, even with sweet whey powder, is already beneficial. That's really starting to play a much bigger role in where we see the future of dairy production go.
Yeah, I think that's also, it's always a divisive topic when we talk about the byproduct, because for everybody, the byproduct is, in their perspective, a different product.
Yeah.
And the question sometimes is, does milk still have byproducts, or does it have a butter fat and a protein component that both need to be valorized well for it to commercially make sense? But it's we're of course getting a lot of pushback by even using the word byproduct. Why I think a few years ago that would have never happened.
No, I think that's fair. And when I started in dairy markets almost 5 years ago, I also figured out that whey used to be a waste product. So we're now already talking about byproducts and possibly main products. A waste product is what it used to be. So we've definitely come a long way from there.
Yeah.
I think that's for at least the impact on whey. We definitely see that more and more, for example, production capacity expansion is taking place on cheese and whey to be able to capitalize on that combination and make sure that you're going to be producing a really, really well valorizing product in the years to come. We see that production capacity is expanding, and that's what we're seeing back in the, where are we? Production numbers already. So if we look at the production year over year, if we take 2022 was lower than 2023, then 2024 came in higher again, 2025, and now 2026, it keeps on moving up in case of European cheese production on a monthly basis, just because we have more and more capacity coming online. It can be many different cheese varieties, but it's definitely under that entire umbrella group of cheese. We just see that the long-term outlook is still towards more and more production and also more and more whey in the end. But it's not just Europe that's doing that. If you look at the US, for example, we have an even stronger growth rate, where the latest numbers for US cheese, in this case in pounds, 1.28 billion pounds of cheese are being produced on a monthly basis. We also see that same growth there. The US has an even better potential when it comes to long-term milk growth. So we also see that a lot of cheese production capacity, together with whey production, is being brought online in the coming years. And it makes sense. I mean, you would like to earn more, but it also poses, or at least it creates a bit of a difficult situation in which multiple markets are trying to expand. And yes, we as consumers, we love our cheese. We keep on eating it. I think the fridge here at the office, it's generally stocked with cheese for the most part, and a lot of chicken for the protein boys here. But the overall consumption of global cheese isn't really expanding as fast as the production is. So we are starting to see a situation where we have competition between New Zealand, between Europe, between US for certain export destinations when it comes to cheese, especially cheddar and mozzarella. Those are the ones that are seeing increased global competition.
Yeah, and I think we're getting a few chats, but maybe let's continue briefly, because I think there's an economic incentive to produce more cheese at the moment, and we'll cycle to the specific questions first. And then we've seen from the valorization, and that is even disregarding higher protein, so those still come on top of that.
Yep.
Then we see there is more cheese being produced, but I think then the question is, that's all supply side. On the demand side, I don't expect that the Europeans and the Americans, where all this extra cheese is produced, are eating that much more cheese than they already were.
No, it's not as low as you would assume, but it is indeed not up to the standards that you would hope to see, or at least are good enough to offset all of this.
Yeah, and how will you see that in Vesper?
There's two different ways. You can either look at the total consumption volumes that we have in our supply and demand widgets. So in the case of European cheese, EU28, which we've lined up here, we have stock loss, which we calculate based on historical production, import, export, and also consumption. And if you look at that consumption over the years, we generally see that cheese is one of the more stable products when it comes to people's diets. And luckily, depends on how you look at it, we have population growth in Europe. So that means that as a continent, we are consuming a bit more cheese year by year. There are some fluctuations seasonally, but it seems like cheese consumption is doing slightly better than, for example, butter consumption or skim milk powder consumption, because those generally don't look that well. And we also have a more detailed view where we can look at processed cheese consumption from retail stores for 4 different countries. So I've selected Germany here, but you can also look at France, Netherlands, and UK. And then we can either have a look at the price of the sold volumes, or we can have a look at the volume itself that's being bought in retail stores. And here we see that so far this year, it's actually been relatively good. So the latest numbers that came in mid-June were lower than the years before, but before that we had roughly 5% growth in retail sales of cheese in Germany. And we can look at, for example, another quite large company when it comes to a country when it comes to cheese. Also, there has been slightly higher to relatively on par with the years before. So this falls in line with the total consumption of cheese, at least on the European side. That's been quite good.
And can you maybe add the UK perspective to that as well? I know we got a question about the UK specifically, so we'll answer that later. But good to, once we have the chance, now we have the chance to immediately show it there.
So here, I believe the story is relatively similar. Of course, please always have a look at the y-axis because it does change. But in this case, the latest numbers are up 10%. But if we look at before, it was down 1, down 3, up 2, very much on par, I'd say, with what we saw in previous years. And those years were not as good as 2024, but it's still relatively okay cheese consumption if we look at the more general trend.
Okay, so supply side, a lot of excess being produced. There's an incentive to produce more cheese. Yep. And the incentive changes a little bit based off the non-fat skim milk powder and butter price, of course, where it's competing for the extra milk.
Yes.
Demand side, I think domestically we see in both regions not bad, but mostly flat. I think we're concluding.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say.
And then, of course, the question is, where does it go?
Yeah, and that's the interesting part. In the case of the US, you can see it quite clearly. If we use the supply and demand widgets for that and only select the exports, you can clearly see that there's a trend of growing exports out of the total US cheese market. If we add consumption, it's a big, small little side note. It's a big side note that we do still see that consumption forms. Well, what is the latest? Roughly, what is it? 5%. Export only forms 2.5% or 5%. My math is not mathing today. Out of the total cheese demand, so consumption is still by far the biggest chunk of the total demand on cheese side. But we do see that if you only look at exports, it has doubled compared to 5 years ago. And we definitely expect that as long as that production is going to keep increasing, we don't see this really slowing down in the years to come.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part to discuss maybe today is then it's a deficit. And now you're looking at American cheese, you can also look at cheese as a whole in the US.
Right.
But I think the interesting part is if that is growing, there's a lot of countries you can select, of course, for this, but the US is an interesting one, that the gap between, well, it depends if you look at consumption versus production or production versus, you can scale how you want, but you see that it is growing, where it used to be mainly domestic market with sellers looking at, okay, hey, domestic price levels are competing also with other domestic producers. And maybe some imports even, that currently you're looking at a larger and larger share that needs to find a mouth to feed outside of the US.
Yep. And they're there, especially in countries or regions such as Asia. We see that there are more consumers popping up and they are willing as a region to import more cheese. And they're actually open for certain types. So if you're really specifically looking for something like Gouda, you might be more linked to European cheese. But if you go for a cheddar or you're looking for a cheddar to import, you can choose any region. So that's why that competition element really starts to play a role. And cheddar and mozzarella are really the two main global cheeses, if you want to look at it that way.
Yeah.
One thing I'd like to add is this is also where, over the last few days, and I am taking a look at the euro-dollar rate on the bottom left over the last 2 hours, and I believe it increased from 114 to 115 in a matter of a few hours. This also starts to play quite a big role. The dollar has been gaining a bit of value over the last few days, which definitely already plays a big role and will scroll all the way up in the US export market, because the moment that we have a look at the US market, where, well, before the euro-dollar FX rate started to change heavily towards a more valuable dollar, the price was roughly 3,700. And in a matter of a few days, we go down to 3,400 simply because of that exchange rate. So that's, where global competition becomes more fierce. Tracking the exchange rate, and I wouldn't recommend forecasting the exchange rate to a certain extent, because there's a lot of political uncertainty in there, but it plays a much larger role. And if you want to keep your exports high, not just for cheese, but also for non-fat, or in some cases butter, that exchange rate starts to play a much more important role than it did a few years ago.
I think question number one, and that we'll cover, because I think it's in line with this one. That's the question: if we're expecting to see more US products coming into Europe, similar to last year.
Is that question on cheese specifically, or more in general?
I think let's answer it more in general, because I think we've seen different products make their way. We've seen butter for a spell. Of course, we've seen some whey proteins for a spell.
Yeah. We're expecting to see less product than we've seen in the last few years. Why? Because butter and whey were amongst the few products that were imported heavily into the European market. But in the US, we now see that the shortage of several products is actually increasing. Things like whey, but also milk protein, non-fat in the first half of this year, aren't necessarily in such an excess that they have the need to export to different regions in Europe. Of course, Europeans might still be interested, but the volume isn't necessarily there. So I think the main differences we'll definitely see in butter and WPC, which even though there might be a slight discount, it's not that all the product is going to find its way into the European market. It's dealing with its own challenges. In the case of butter, we have plenty on our own, and in the case of WPC, the US doesn't really have the volume to export it to us. And I think most other products we're kind of independent. So the import-export trade lanes between the two regions is much more focused around niche products or specifics, such as Irish butter moving to the US, or a certain type of US specialty ingredient with a certain grade moving from one factory to another towards Europe. So in essence, we're globally lower.
Yeah, but the price incentive works. Big gaps lead to,
of course,
smart exporters or importers coming up. Then there's a question about I think maybe looking at the relationship between European cheese and specifically what's happening in the UK. If you see what we just described about Europe, if we see exactly the same in the UK, or if we have a more UK specific outlook.
The UK is actually, the interesting part is that if we look at the UK and the UK dairy market as a whole, we have seen that they have been seeing an incredibly large increase in milk production last year. So 2025 was an incredible season where most regions actually had a surplus starting in H2. The surplus in the UK actually started at the start of 2025 already, and now 2026 is barely exceeding that, but it's more on par than what we experienced before. And it really seems like at this stage, all of that excess product still has to find a way in the entire European market. So there's a lot of product trying to find a home from the UK, and that's what we're seeing, for example, in cheddar. Together with Ireland, of course, UK is a big producer of cheddar. And if we take cheddar versus, it's Oceania. If you took look at cheddar in blue compared to Gouda, we've historically always seen quite a large premium for cheddar on top of Gouda. But now in recent times, it's actually been much more on par because of these issues, or at least the large supply that we see coming from the UK. So there's an increased dependency, especially if milk is in good supply as it is today. And all of that will have to find a home. And unfortunately for cheddar producers or sellers at a slightly lower price than you might expect than previous years.
Okay, then one more question, but we're going to rush to the finish line. That is that yesterday's EX price for whey powder was released, and that it was a bit surprising to see a decrease of the index in this period with WPC, so the concentrates driving everything up. Yeah. Should we consider this as an exception against all forecasts?
That's a Good question. I think overall, there's something happening in sweet whey lactose permeate over the past few weeks to months that's kind of interesting. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around that, and I'm actually doing some research to figure out what the latest status is. I tried to explain some of the market highlights from yesterday, or market analysis from yesterday. But something's happening there. So I would love to give you a proper answer, but I don't think I have one at this stage. But we're happy to dive in and figure out what's really going on with whey powder and why it's actually moving up in line with those other markets rather than down.
And I do think there that the decoupling of whey powder in general, and especially feed grade exchange whey powder, which is not going to help, towards higher proteins has happened quite a long time ago. That it's not the best multiple to use to try to get a fair price assessment of higher proteins.
Nope.
And I think, I think a lot of people, I don't know, a lot of people who are still using it. I know people who've preferred to use like an SMP price. It's also not a good one, but over the whey powder price for concentrates. One more question, which is a little bit of homework to you, Jasper, but because I also want you to do it, so I'm going to read it out loud. That is whether you're going to include the WPC80 into the milk valorization model and for the cheese stream. And I'm going to add to that. That's a FICO request. Can you also add the milk protein concentrate stream to the non-fat butter stream to have that comparison?
I can't say no to these requests. No, the Whey one is in the pipeline, and MPC has been indeed in the making as well. So yes, I'll definitely go and do my homework directly after.
Perfect. Well, Jasper, thank you so much. A lot to cover in 30 minutes. It always goes quicker than we think, but we hope to see you all back in 2 weeks' time when we return after this unusual twice in 2 weeks episode. But great to have you back, Jasper, and great that we have our new that we can ask our questions again, give you some homework, and I look forward to the next one.
Likewise. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.